name is Kay Byfield, and this is your ArtSpeaks Studio moment from ArtSpeaks Studio in Dallas, Texas, where we offer classes online and in person in our studio, mostly for watercolor. And today we're going to talk about the problem for artists of staying motivated. I find this is a very common problem. The issue is that while it may be easy to schedule your life about other aspects of your life, scheduling in art making can be very problematic. And this is because when we make art, we have to set time aside, we have to have our materials, we have to have a process, we have to have an idea. And so there are a lot of issues involved in making art. The solution is to come up with some strategies of how to focus your life and plan your time so that you will be less likely to have willpower in order to make art, and you just naturally find yourself in the studio creating new pieces. But we all respond differently to the circumstances of our lives. So what works for one person in terms of motivating them and getting them to actually get into the studio and do work doesn't work for somebody else. For myself, I have only found that structuring my life around a schedule only works if it's imposed from the outside. For instance, if I have a job, in that case, I have no trouble with it. I will be at work at 7:30. I will take lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. I will leave at 5:30, whatever. But in my personal world, where the time is flexible, things like having to get the car serviced or pick up the dry cleaning or take someone to the doctor, all of those things will end up interfering with the schedule in some ways, and I find that it's almost useless to have a schedule because it just makes me feel bad about myself that I'm not sticking with it. In my case, I have found that the best thing to use to motivate me is to have some hard deadlines. And these deadlines include an exhibition that I plan to participate in, a competition, some kind of activity that I want to have work for that I'm proud of. That motivates me. I work toward that. I don't need a tight schedule that I'll work from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock on Monday. I just need to say, okay, I'm going to work for this week, and I'm going to show real progress. Other people have other ways that they structure their time and motivate themselves to actually be making art. And today I'm going to share some of those ways. As I said, the first tip is to schedule times that will be your painting times and will be balanced with your other needs and activities. So for instance, if you're a writer and you're working on your novel, if you get up in the morning and you write for 2 hours every day before breakfast, that can be a very concrete way of actually making progress in your work. Many people find that a schedule like that will work really, really well. I'm just not one of them. Another way of solving this problem is to expose yourself to other people's artworks. When we look at other art, it has a tendency to energize us. So for instance, if you attend a demonstration where someone else is painting and explaining what they do, or if you go to a museum or an art gallery, or even if you watch videos on the internet, all of those things can help to inspire you and motivate you to get into the studio yourself. Something that I find is really helpful for me is to challenge yourself. Do something that is out of the norm for you. In my case, the Southwestern Watercolor Society sponsors a paint out twice a year, and when it fits into my schedule, I attend. I don't like to paint on location. I'm not interested in painting most of the subjects on location because I like to paint things that are moving. And if you're painting on location, you have to contend with the weather, the lighting, the bringing all your materials, coming up with the composition right on the spot. I'm a studio painter and prefer to do that because I usually paint using reference photos of things that aren't going to stay where they are very long. So painting landscape or painting buildings or things like that are just not in my bailiwick. However, doing that a couple times a year makes me stop and think about my art process and makes me think about my painting. And I find that that energizes me and brings me back to the studio with new motivation. Another thing that artists use very successfully is to focus on the process. If you hit a wall, if you've got artist's block, perhaps, or if you're just having a hard time getting started, sometimes focusing on the process, doing the background work that you need to do in order to get going, can be a big opening to the block. So, for instance, people who paint in oils on canvas that's stretched may find that building stretchers and stretching the canvas and priming it will work. In my case, I've started painting on stretched paper. And so I have to get the composition done, I have to put it on the paper, I have to attach the paper to a board so that it's easier for me to manipulate. But also, while I'm doing all those activities, I'm thinking about the work I'm going to create. Another thing that we can do in order to increase our motivation and get back into it is we can teach other people. And I find this works particularly well for me. When I'm helping other people to understand what they are doing, and I'm explaining processes and I'm explaining concepts, I find that I hear what I say and it gets me all excited about my own work. This doesn't work very well if you're not a good teacher. Another thing that works really well is to find a painting buddy. So just like the project of trying to lose weight or exercise more or any of the other things that call for some willpower and some organization, having a painting buddy can make a big difference because art making is something that we usually do singularly. We do it by ourselves. But having another person who shares your concerns, that you are intimate enough with one another to be able to talk about your processes and your problems and issues that you're dealing with, even if they're not working in the same medium, even if they don't use the same kind of style, just the fact that you both share this passion for making art can make a huge difference. And once I was in on a group of painters where we met once a month for a half a day and everybody showed what they were doing, and that was really the best because that satisfied two needs that I have. One is I wanted to be able to show them something, so that motivated me. And the other was that when other people talked about what they were doing, it got me thinking about what I was doing in new ways. Sometimes their feedback was also very helpful. So finding a painting buddy can make a big difference. We all have different strategies for how we maintain our motivation and continue to make art in a productive, consistent manner so that we produce a body of work and that we continue to grow. I hope you found yours, and I look forward to seeing you again in future ArtSpeaks videos. In the meantime, happy painting.